Welcome to Chasing Rings Overtime. These fast break episodes are an extension of the main show, delivering quick-hitting takes, bold opinions, and analysis on the biggest stories and topics across sports. While we remain rooted in football year-round, Overtime expands our lens to cover everything happening across the sports world. We will return for a second season of full-length episodes in July as we ramp up for complete NCAA football and NFL coverage in preparation for the 2026 seasons. Until then, let's go. This is Chasing Rings Overtime. Hey, welcome to Chasing Rings Overtime. Big dude, my guy. What's happening on a wonderful Thursday afternoon?
I'm wonderful. I'm blessed to be here.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Oh, man. NBA playoffs continue to roll. I guess why don't we start with the Eastern Conference and the Cleveland Cavaliers' absolute collapse the other night. They're getting ready to play game 2 in a few hours here. 44-11 run by the Knicks to end that game, overcoming a 22-point deficit. So Cleveland blew that deficit, which is not unheard of. I mean, if you look through playoff history, there have been teams, some really good teams, in fact, that have blown those types of leads. Some of them have gone on to actually win the NBA championship. But do you think Cleveland's going to be able to get it together in the next few hours here and be ready to go and kind of get their minds right to get back into this series, big dude?
They've made it very difficult. I think, again, the key is going to be whether Harden is going to be able to bring it back. And we all talk about what kind of a difference he was going to make. He actually had a pretty solid game all the way up until about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And he pretty much, I don't want to say the reason the comeback came, but everything that we were afraid of while in a 48-minute game, I'll say 43 minutes, he actually did more than what he was supposed to do. Those last 5 minutes, and it wasn't just him, it just unraveled altogether. All those crazy shots that he was taking was one thing, him driving to the hole on 3 people, just very erratic. And then I think we did talk about that defensive matchup where he was stuck in the matchup, of point guards and lost that one very miserably. And I think the rest of the team is as good as everybody else is. I think that they really thought that they had the game earlier than they thought. The game was not over. I was very concerned that I just kept thinking, you know what? They're going to make a turnaround in this game. It's not going to be, it'll get down to 9 points and they'll turn it around. But gosh, it was just awful. It really was awful to see just how much Brunson just came in and just started icing them and even stopping them on the defensive end. And then they had a chance to really put the Knicks away. And you got to put them away when you can. I want to say I think Cleveland has a shot, but I would still say now that they are the unders on this. They're the underdogs on this second game. I don't know if you can recover. Coaching was not the best either, that kind of thing. No timeout call during a 22-1 run. I've never heard of that. So we'll see how that recovers, and we'll see if there's a whole lot that they can do. They did everything they could do to stop the Knicks and Brunson and he so OG was stopped cold, and wasn't looking like himself. So they did everything right for 43 minutes.
Yeah, getting game 1 on the road in these series is so important, and they really let a golden opportunity slip right through their fingers. I really thought that there's no way that the Knicks were going to come all the way back. I'm like, eventually they're going to cool off. Cleveland will start making some shots, but I could not believe what I was watching. I mean, the lead, it was just like the floodgates literally opened, for lack of a better metaphor. The floodgates literally opened, and the look on the Cleveland's players' faces, you could see that there was nothing that was going to stop it. I think once it got down to like that 5-6 point range, it was almost a matter of were the Knicks going to run out of time? It's kind of what I was thinking. Like, is Cleveland going to make enough shots where the Knicks actually run out of time? But I definitely want to talk about James Harden a little bit. And you used the term that I think appropriately describes why I don't like watching him. He plays an erratic style of basketball. And when you need it in those key moments, being erratic like that, taking these wild-looking shots, like you said, driving 1-on-3 on people, he's been in the league too long in those moments to still be playing erratically in those key moments, because obviously it works for him. Don't ask me how, but it works for him for a majority of these games. But at the end, you got to have a really good possession. It's got to be calculated. This is where the coaching comes in, like you said. Coaches need to dial something up. There was a moment there, and I wish I could remember the exact time, but Donovan Mitchell brought up the ball one time, and he waved Harden to clear out, and Harden didn't clear and was calling for the ball, and Donovan Mitchell almost passed him the ball, almost like if you remember playing outside with somebody and you got a ball hog on your team, and you're kind of like, damn, he crying for the ball again, and Donovan kind of passed it to him almost with that subtle, damn, man, he wants the ball again. And then he took some crazy shot. And I think if Cleveland's going to recover, it's Donovan Mitchell's team. Don't defer to James Harden. You should be taking shots. Mobley's taking shots. Harden's taking shots. Everybody's taking those shots except Donovan Mitchell. You know, when he did get to the free throw line the one time. Like, take the ball to the basket. That's one way to stop the bleeding. Take the ball to the basket, make the refs make a call, get to the free throw line. As we know, shooters can get right when they see that ball go through at the free throw line. Sometimes you can get right again just seeing that ball go through the net. I'm really concerned about that team and the leadership. And I love Donovan Mitchell. I love him. But he cannot defer to James Harden if Cleveland's going to stand a chance in this series, because that's just not going to work. I think Evan Mobley played big. He actually ended up being a better pro than I thought he would be. So, you know, he's doing well, but James Harden, and I hate to really be brutal, but let's talk about him some more. A player with James Harden's resume, I'm sorry, man, I can't, he can't get off this easy. He can't get off this easy because they had a championship team. They were right there in Oklahoma City. But this new era of player, you know, KD wants to go join the winners. He wants to go over with Cobra Kai because they're the winning gym and all that, right? He don't want to beat Cobra Kai. He wants to join Cobra Kai. So he goes to Golden State. And then, of course, Westbrook then wants to go, and then Harden wants his own team. If they had kept that team together, we'd probably be having a very different conversation about all three of those players. And while KD did win, you know, going to another team, for me, he's always going to have an asterisk by his name. But anyways, to go back to my question, James Harden's resume, he's considered to be an all-time great. But when the biggest moments of his career come, he consistently shies away and does not finish strong. Are we going to still consider him an all-time great? I know he's already been listed as a top 75. For you, where does James Harden stand in terms of great NBA players, big dude?
Well, I mean, he's very much on the edge of anything that's considered all-time. I would say an all-time player does not go 1 for 8 from three-point line, you know. And also, you know, not understand, you know, most of the people that are all-time too, they learned to adjust their game, you know, Barkley, all the rest of those guys, you know, it wasn't going to be dunking over 3-4 people. But I think he's got to ask himself, I mean, and if he is going to, you know, drive to the hole, kick and let somebody else have the opportunity. And it looks like I was shocked to learn. What did I learn? He only had 4. I think Harden only had 3 assists. That was it. 3 assists from a guy.
Sounds about right.
That clearly has got point guard skills, and that's why he's going to have to look at it. You know, he's got his points. You know, you drive to make it harder for him, and that's the part he did before he fell apart. He was starting to go to the hole and dish, you know, instead of trying to kind of take umbrage and take responsibility for coming back. He's not that type of player. If he is run, he's not a guy that's a run stopper. He doesn't have that in him anymore. He's the one that's got to calm things down, like you said, give it on over to Mitchell, Mobley, and then you got Allen, who is tough as nails on the block.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't understand. I mean, to me, Cat would have had to really show me something. I start going to Allen also on the post to see if Cat, as the game goes, because Cat he plays on the outside a lot. I don't know about him on the block. If you look at him, his build is impressive and he's athletic. You want to make it a grind type of game. When somebody is coming back, you want to slow it down and grind it out. That's what Harden should have been doing. So for that reason, him not making the adjustments and him not really playing with the savvy that somebody of his maturity should play with, I don't think he's an all-time great. That's the answer to the question.
Yeah, I'm with you. He might be one of the most prolific scorers that we've seen before, but that hardly puts you among the all-time greats if you don't bring any other attributes to the game. I want to go back to something you said, though. I think you're spot on. Instead of settling for those wild jumpers, like you said, slow down, drive, take the ball to the basket. I'd be much more comfortable if he was missing mid-range shots than those ridiculous threes, because they were almost like desperation threes. It looked like threes from a team that was behind 10 with 30 seconds left.
Right.
Like you're still leading the game. You do not have to take a three-pointer. Making one of those three-pointers was not going to stop the bleeding any more than a two-pointer would have. And, I just had big problems with that. And my last point about Cleveland in general is too much dribbling. No matter who had the ball out there, too much dribbling. Get some movement in your offense. And this is where it goes back to what you mentioned about the coaching. Call a timeout first and foremost, and call a freaking play. Get some motion in your offense. Don't have one guy out there dribbling. And I don't know if you saw Mike Brown's comments, is that they noticed all the times that James Harden dribbles. And, hey, they're fine with that. I know if I was defending him, fine. Stand out here and dribble. Do your little dip and step back. You do that all day because I don't trust you at the end of the game, dude. You might drop 40 on me before we get to this 5-minute mark, but I don't trust you to do anything in clutch. So we'll see what type of game he has tonight. We'll see what type of game the Cavs have. I think the Knicks found something in the last 7 minutes of that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and blow Cleveland's doors out to start this game. But we'll see. We shall see. So let's get into the Western Conference, which, man, that's about to get extremely interesting, because what we've already seen is Wemby's doing his thing. They're not going to be able to OKC's not going to be able to stop that. But in OKC winning that game the other night to tie that series, a lot of interesting developments occurred. So we already knew that De'Aaron Fox was out for the Spurs, and that was really an issue for them at the point guard. Now Dylan Harper goes out in the third quarter with a leg injury, and I haven't seen any updates on his MRI. The last thing I saw was that it might not be as bad as they thought, but the possibility is him missing multiple games. So now your guard situation becomes worse. And I point that out to start our discussion because their turnovers have been ridiculous thus far. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've had 48 turnovers in the first two games. And you're not going to beat the defending champions turning the ball over that much. And if you take those turnovers away, San Antonio was in that game, somehow got back into that game in the last few minutes, and unfortunately couldn't hit any shots when it counted. But they did turn the ball over a lot after they got it down to 3 points. If you take their turnovers away and the number of points that have been scored, I think that OKC has scored 50 points off turnovers in the first two games. So that's 50 points that you've given up off turnovers. They're going to have to figure out their guard play. But the other thing that happened in that game is now OKC's been hit with the injury bug. Jalen Williams, who's been hurt all year, re-aggravated his hamstring. That this is the third or fourth hamstring injury he's had this year. So that's going to be concerning. And then his backup for most of the year, Mitchell, hurt his quad. So now we got the walking wounded here going into San Antonio tomorrow night for game 3. Which team do you think any one team has the advantage if De'Aaron Fox continues to be out, if Harper doesn't play, and then Williams is now out and Mitchell is out? Do you think that one team has the advantage over the other?
I think De'Aaron Fox being out will continue to be big, because of the turnovers. And I think sooner or later, even though the Thunder have their folks that are there, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much they're going to rely on Caruso. I think Caruso is where the next part of the energy comes from. Caruso plays a tough, gritty game, but he plays a smart game. He doesn't turn the ball over much. I think that's where the difference is going to be, even though Williams was there. Williams probably was somewhat of a defensive liability from what I saw. I don't know if he's able to keep up, even if he does play. He can shoot, and he gave them all he could. He probably didn't heal all the way, but you got to get some other folks that are there. And the other very pleasant surprise for OKC was Jared McCain. Just bringing them the energy and doing just enough to really give them some options, and them understanding, and that's the Thunder. I mean by them, the Thunder understanding that they can rely on him for something consistently. I think that's going to be the key to this. Is going to find. We're going to find out how good that trade from the Sixers was for OKC, and I think that's how, if they're going to win this series, it's going to be those folks. I think Caruso and Jared McCain, and also, as we saw, Hartenstein, even though Wemby really still battled hard and still had a pretty good game, Hartenstein is going to do anything, including probably take some takes some what are they called? Some flagrant ones. He get it, because every time Wemby came across the lane, Hartenstein did just what we talked about the other night. He's giving them some physicality, and Wemby working for 24 points is about as good as you can do. So I would say Hartenstein, their other ex-players, I think it'll work out good because they had to change their defensive strategy anyway. So I'm not so sure how much they lose. But De'Aaron Fox has got to play in order for Seattle to have a better chance, because if they fall down 2-1, it will be very difficult, even in San Antonio, for them to keep the momentum.
Yeah, that De'Aaron Fox injury is huge. And honestly, I feel like after watching that second game and now with these injuries, that coaching is going to be the difference in this series. I do not like some of the offensive sets that the Spurs have at times. When they're hot from the threes and it opens up the floor a little bit and you can start dumping it into Wemby, hey, it's easy, right? But they struggled a little bit offensively. And I feel like with Wemby in the center as an advantage, slow down your offense a little bit. And I know today's NBA, they want to go up and down, but you have a significant advantage, in the middle. You should not end up down as much as they're down with that weapon on your offense. You shouldn't be getting bad possessions, taking terrible shots with him there. You should always be able to get some open threes, because they're going to collapse on him. And if they don't collapse, then he's going to have a mismatch against his man one-on-one. What I did notice, and I like what OKC did, you mentioned putting Hartenstein on him. That's probably one thing that I noticed, that, and Wemby's still young in his career, and he's already filled out significantly and gotten stronger, but probably needs to get a little bit stronger, which is a scary thought, because, man, could you imagine if he was stronger? You wouldn't be able to do anything. You could body up all you want to, but you could see that there's still a little bit of growth there in terms of strength-wise. Even Caruso at times was kind of able to keep him on the spot, and that should never happen with that size difference. So we'll look for that moving forward. But this guard play, I love Stephon Castle, and I hate that he's being put into the situation that he's put in, because he's not a point guard.
No.
And I feel like he's being critiqued because of all the turnovers, but that's where the coaches need to change their strategy. He can't be your primary ball handler if he's not a true point guard. I'd much rather Dylan Harper control the ball, even though he's been a little shaky in his decisions, maybe driving into the traffic a lot and turning the ball over, but not as much as Castle. But now that you have Harper out, possibly, this creates even a worse problem if De'Aaron Fox doesn't come back. So I'm really worried about that. If at least De'Aaron Fox could come back, you can at least stabilize the turnovers. But one of the problems that both of these teams are going to have is the types of injuries that these guys have. You're not going to heal from these injuries throughout the rest of this season.
No.
So how bad are the hammies? Exactly. How bad are the hammies? How bad are the quads? We know the hamstrings aren't gonna they're not gonna recover from the hamstrings. We know that for a fact. And I don't think there's as much time between these games as there's been in the past. So coaches and treatment are going to be real huge for these two teams moving forward. I still think I like San Antonio to win the series. What do you think, big dude?
Well, I think a lot of it depends upon whether De'Aaron Fox plays for sure. I would say you just made a real critical point about Castle. I mean, Castle had the highlight reel play and everything. But what counts is even more is he had 9 turnovers last night. Again, 11 one night and 9 last night. I think the further it goes, if this game goes to 7 games, that type of thing will be a problem when you get to game 7. So I think that San Antonio, if De'Aaron Fox is playing, I say they favor it a little bit because it'll change the way they have to play, folks. But still, even with De'Aaron Fox in there, Wemby is trying to take the team on his back. I don't know if that matters as much, but I would say if you can just keep Wemby in that 22, 21, 24 point range, and you use the bench. I mean, and even if you had Jared McCain, I mean, him having 12 points, and that was on like 4-14. So if he shoots better, who even knows just how that's going to go? So I would say that I still feel like Oklahoma will limp through this series and just come away with getting through there. It'll be good to see San Antonio go, but I think the experience and hopefully the better basketball play for Oklahoma will dictate the way the series will go ultimately.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like San Antonio's quite ready yet. This game 3, I think whoever wins this game 3, that'll be your winner. But somehow I still think I think Wemby could take it up another notch if that's even possible. Yeah, I do think he can take it up another notch, and I think that's going to be the difference for them. All right, our next segment here, Mama. There goes that man again, Aaron Rodgers. Final lap. Haven't been the hugest Aaron fan the last few years. I really liked him for most of his career, but I didn't realize that he had the personality that he had. Little bit too arrogant for me, but that's okay. So he obviously signed with Pittsburgh for an additional year, and then recently announced that this upcoming season will be his last season. So when you would look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and where they are, they're not – I mean, they made the playoffs last year. They won their division. The division wasn't the strongest, but you have to ask yourself, Cincinnati, I know Joe Burrow made a statement that this is the most talented team that they've had, so that's a little bit scary. So Cincinnati may be back. I definitely expect Baltimore to have a breakout season. I think Cleveland's going to be better than they have been, and their defense has always been a challenge. So very difficult division once again. Big dude, do you think that Aaron coming back for this last year, and excuse me, I make fun of him. Aaron coming back for his last year. Does this change Pittsburgh from just a regular playoff team to a legitimate contender? Do you think this is just a victory lap tour for him, basically?
I mean, I just don't think he's done so much. And when they talk about him coming through, we know he's managing the offense, and we get that. I just don't think that's going to be enough to beat a contender. It's like you could be, but somebody's got to pull him out of the water so he can be a contender. If you're asking him to do it, I would say no. I would say, some of the new players they have, the offensive line, him staying healthy, I think they could make it to possibly the second round. And let me tell you something, I have an outside chance at the AFC Championship. But that's if all things go best. I mean, he has a receiver that he needs. I think Pittsburgh still is on its way up. And I don't see them necessarily as a legitimate contender. All things works well and he's happy. It really is going to depend. And I think Baltimore, too, having the type of year that they're going to have and how everything happens with Lamar Jackson coming back and their squad. And I think that's where they're going to have the problems with Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that this is not going to change anything for Pittsburgh. I think they got a gift last year. I just feel like I know Baltimore is going to be better, and I feel Cincinnati's going to be better. That's just a tough division, and the AFC overall is tough this year. So I just don't – Pittsburgh is not a team that would be on my list as a legitimate contender. Could they be a playoff team? Sure. But they're going to need a lot of help from a lot of other teams. I don't think that they'll surpass these other teams in the AFC enough to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But stranger things have happened, injury, people not living up to expectations. A lot of different things could happen for teams to fall into place. So I don't think this changes a whole lot for them. It'll be, but what could be dangerous is him and Mike McCarthy back together. I mean, there's familiarity there. They've won it before. And, we make fun of McCarthy, but he's not a terrible coach. So we can see we'll see what happens. Big dude, how would you define success for Rodgers in his final season? I mean, obviously, winning the Super Bowl will be the ultimate, but just for him personally, what do you think a successful season will look like?
Knowing that they have to even know that they think they're in. I mean, that they're going to have to just be more definitive about getting in the playoffs, getting the team to get better every week, finding out what they can do to get some of the younger players going, and getting beyond, the tough part about, like you said, we didn't know his personality. And a lot of that happens when you get older. I think that McCarthy is going to have to realize this isn't the same quarterback that he coached before. What adjustments do you make with this Aaron Rodgers? With this one, maybe he's not going to be able to wow you with his deep ball, but he has to know what they have around him. And I think that's what's going to define success if he's able to stay healthy and he's able to, keep the turnovers down and be able to basically inspire the team to even a much more competitive position. I mean, one thing I saw with that team last year in the offense, they got it done enough, but they weren't too sure about themselves. So I think we'll definitely dictate things is if they're able to be more sure about themselves all the way up front to anybody like Max Hanachour that they have up front. I mean, what can you get a guy like that to do? And then how much is he going to get better from the quarterbacks that he has? They have a good quarterback room with Aller and Howard. So I would say the way all that runs and the readiness of the offense and them dictating most of the games, I think will show it. I don't know if that will show that it's going to be more than a 10-7 record. I don't know. Maybe 11-6 at the best. So in that range, I say that's a pretty solid season, and it's a good tour to go by because I think they're going to surprise some people. But they've got to do more than surprise some people. They have to be definitive in order to be a legitimate challenger.
Yeah, I think for me, him having a successful final season would be defined as Pittsburgh being competitive throughout and having a chance to win the division and definitely getting them to the playoffs, whether it's a wild card or as a division winner. I think that would be a successful season for him. I like what you said about, low turnovers, which he doesn't typically turn the ball over, and staying healthy. Obviously finishing on both feet would be great to be able to walk off that last game whenever it comes, whether it's regular season or playoffs. But I just think him being competitive, and he wasn't terrible last year. He was pretty good last year, and he's got more weapons now. So we'll see what happens. But that division should be interesting. So anyways, that wraps up this episode of Chasing Rings Overtime. Please be sure to continue to follow us on all the major streaming platforms. And until next time, see ya later.